What's going on, guys? And welcome back to another episode of Stereotherapy. I'm your host, Lisa, and this is episode 95. On this episode, I was joined by Gibby. You may know him from Unsigned Pop Punk, Where Did All My Friends Go podcast. And you may also know him from all of his other work in the industry. Gibby just does so much, and I think he's someone that I can truly learn from. And again, I'm just going to say it again. I really, really appreciate being asked to be on Where Did All My Friends Go? Unsigned Pop Punk's podcast. It was hands down the highlight of my year. I appreciate and respect everything they do for the scene. It is everything I'm all about. So for me to get a chance to be on that show early on, it was so wonderful. And I cannot thank them enough. When Gibby reached out about coming on my show, I was like, yes, of course, this is going to be so great. I'm so excited. So just a little thing about this episode, it is obviously longer. We're both podcasters. It's just this life, and we have a lot in common. All links below to go check out Where Did All My Friends Go? Unsigned Pop Punk. I'm sure a lot of you guys already follow them, but if for whatever reason you are not, go ahead and do that. But here's my conversation with Gibby. But one that we love to start with, I would love to know for you, is what are your first memories of falling in love with music? And was it an artist, a record, or just hearing something for the first time? What really made you fall in love with music?
So I've always told this to people. Like I even tell this to like my partner and stuff. Like I would not be on the trajectory of like what I'm doing now if it wasn't for the band Kiss.
Oh, that's so cool. Like
Like
no one has ever said that, so that's so awesome.
growing up, to me, like, and Kiss isn't even that great of a band. Like I know that. But like growing up, I was like the biggest Kiss fan. Like my mom had like a bunch of Kiss CDs in the car, so that's all I listened to. So I really liked it. And then like I started like buying, like they bought me like DVDs, and like to me what like rock and roll and most like the performance aspect of it, where like they have the fireworks, the blood, the guitar that shoots out fireworks, that the guitar that floats in the air after the solo and smokes up, them coming down on the rap on the little platforms as the show starts. Like to me, that was like I was like, this is so cool. I want to do this.
That's so,
Like
yeah, that is so awesome to hear. Like, no one has really said Kiss, and all like, gosh, what, I don't even know what episode this will be, like 94 or 95, but like, nobody has said that. And it makes such sense because that imagery of Kiss for me is like, I remember seeing that and like, whoa, what is this? And again, maybe I didn't love the music or like really was into that music, but it was just that imagery that was like, this band is cool, even if people don't think it's cool. Like, it's cool to me as like a kid seeing like my parents listen to Kiss.
yeah, and like it's just like like I said, that performance aspect of it, where it's like all the fire. It's more of a show rather than a concert, and like just the idea of like the makeup. And I've always wanted to, like, for the longest time I've always wanted to do some sort of masked project, like before there was Sleep Token. Like a lot of like my favorite bands growing up, like Kiss, Hollywood Undead, Slipknot, like all of them like wore masks, and I thought that was the coolest thing ever, like not knowing who they were. And I was always like, I really want to do that. And I've always had the idea of like just being so hard, like where like you have to be the greatest detective in the world to find out who the band is. And then Sleep Token came out and did all that. I'm like,
Yeah.
there we go.
They
They beat
literally,
me to it.
like, this is where I would get canceled if someone, I have yet to check out Sleep Token, and people, and it's like, I don't know what it is. I think it's because everybody says like you have to like them. They're so amazing. They're so incredible. And I'm just that person where it's like on my own time, I'll check them out. I love what they're doing. I think it's so cool. And anyone I've talked to that has seen them live is like, it is like you have to see them live. They're just
I would love to see them
incredible.
live.
And I'm like, I've yet to see, because everything I think for me around here has been a big festival or something like that. And I haven't been able to go. And I'm like, I want to experience it. But I'm like, I haven't really sat down with Sleep Token. And it's like, again, I don't know what it is about them, but I think they just like much like Slipknot, and that like they just seem so cool and different. Like I don't think there's, I mean, a band that sounds like Sleep Token right now. So for
Oh
me, I
yeah.
love bands like that where I'm like, I should just dive into it. And I forget who it was. I don't know who it was. Somebody on Threads. I was like, I've never listened to Sleep Token. I'm probably gonna get like, canceled for this or whatever. And they were like, no, you should start here. And then I never did. So like now hearing them, I'm like, I need to like go back to Sleep Token and like figure out how I feel about them and everything.
I it's funny because like I've always like known of them. Like they're I want to say it's a blood sport. Like that song I've heard like for the last like few years, and like to me that's like my favorite Sleep Token song. And then I just kind of saw them blowing up because I remember I had the chance to see them when they opened up for Issues like years ago, and I did not go. And like now, being a bigger Sleep Token fan, I'm really kicking myself about that because that would have been so cool to see.
Oh, yeah, and you and I talked to that says that had those early opportunities before. Now they're, like, massive, and they're like, "How did I, like, sleep on this or, like, not be able to?" And I'm like, also, it's like, sometimes with shows, they're expensive, they're on a for me, if they're on a weeknight and I have to go to work the next day, I just look at that time and I'm like, "Oh, I can't." Like, I can't. Like, something I have to figure that out, but it's yeah, to see those bands at those like, when we were talking on your show, obviously, like, about Fall Out Boy, that's, like, neat. Seeing them early on in those early times in their career, and then now and I know people, like, that went to When We Were Young are like, "Hey, they're not the same, they have all this pyro and stuff." I'm like, "Yeah, but, like, early on, just seeing a band early on is just it's so cool." And then if you see them get larger, you're like, "Hey, I saw them in this tiny place, and it was so
Yeah.
cool."
But honestly, I think it's cool that they like interpret like all the like the pyro and like the big stage show they put on. Cause again, like back to the whole Kiss thing. To me, it's more about the performance and the experience rather than just playing the music. And
Yeah.
so like when we saw Fall Out Boy on their like on the So Much for Stardust tour, they had like the dog. Pete
Yeah.
Wentz had that bass that was a like a snow globe,
Mhm.
like where it like I was like so like I was like, what is that? Like, I want to know how he built that because I want
Yeah. Oh.
like just like it was literally like it looked like there was like liquid and everything, like an actual snow globe where you just like flip it around. And I like I said, like to me, it's all about the performance of it. I want to go back remembering rather than just, oh yeah, those songs are really good.
Yeah.
And
Oh, that I mean, that's so yeah, that's so good. No one some people haven't said that yet on here, so that's really cool to have, like, from Kiss to still have that with a band like Fall Out Boy, that you want that performance and have that versus, like, "All right, I'm just gonna see a bunch of songs played," and then, like, and that's cool too, but I
yeah,
think too
don't get me wrong, if your favorite band just goes on stage and plays, cool, because I love that too. Some like one of my for the longest time, like I went through this like technical phase where I was listening to like Animals as Leaders and like all those like real instrumental bands where like they can't move because if they mess like one note, it's just gonna throw them off complete. And like I get it, like I love stuff like that too. It's just the fact that of the like I said, the performance aspect of it, the experience.
Oh, Animals Leaders. I got lucky. Gosh, I don't know what year it was, but they went on tour with Circus Survive. And
Oh yeah,
it
yeah,
was
yeah.
them. I think it was Dredge, Animals Leaders. Maybe it's just those three. I don't know, but I don't remember.
I
But
do remember that tour.
and, like, I remember just being blown away by animals as leaders because for me, I'm like, that's one thing about Circa for me that I love. They're one of my favorite bands, but I love that, like, they were one of those ones that always brought out cool bands like that. And I remember just being blown away by animals as leaders. Like, what is this? I need to go home and go find what are they, all their little catalog, whatever I can find. And I think a lot of people around me felt the same too, where they were like, "What is this?" Like, I wanna go find more of this because it's just that good.
Yeah, no, and like to me, it's like those like them, Polyphia, Periphery, like all
Mhm.
that real technical play, there's not a knock on them because like a lot of them they really do got to like focus on what they're playing. Like I don't know if you ever saw that video from the drummer of Periphery, like their in-ear stopped working for their set, so their drum tech literally had to sit there and just on his leg like tempo like 1 2 3 4 1 2 3, like
Whoa. No,
because
I
he
haven't seen that.
I'll have to find it so I can send it to you because like I don't know what happened. It was at So What Fest. His like I guess like he was having problems with his in-ears, and he couldn't hear like what the band was playing, or he couldn't hear the click track. So his drum tech was just sitting there off the side of the stage, like on his calf, just
Wow.
tapping the tempo for each song to him the whole set.
Wow, that's
And I
yeah,
was like,
that's wild to think about. Like, for me, I don't even play an instrument. I wish I could. I tried to play guitar, failed many times, and just put it down. I was like, "I can't do this." And plus
see,
I wasn't set up. I was my parents were, "Here's guitar for dummies. Here you go, and figure it out." So it's like if I could go back in time or even now, like anyone I talk to on here, they're like, "Oh, you should totally go do it because there's places like School of Rocks by me, all these places
yeah.
they're like, there are places you can go, but then I'm like, then I'd feel weird, like, going to, like, School of Rock, right? I'm like, I'm in my 30s, I'd be like, "All right, let me go, come on, kids." But I think that the ability to play an instrument, I'm like, I wish I had it 'cause it's so cool how bands like that or just a favorite band of mine can just put it all together. Anyone we talk to on here, I'm like, I wish I had that talent. I have nothing in me. I wish.
So I'm a failed guitar player gone bassist. So that I was gonna say just hop on bass.
There we
Easiest
go.
thing.
There we go. That's what I gotta do. I'm just gonna do it. I'll be like, "All right, I think that's what Pete Wentz plays." So I'll be like, "That makes sense."
That
If that,
makes sense.
you know?
And it's so funny because like I love Pete Wentz. I love Fallout Boy. Pete
Mhm.
Wentz is not that good of a bassist.
No, everybody has said that. Everybody
And
has
but
said
like
that.
he's like probably like one of the most famous bass players. It's like same again with Kiss, Gene Simmons, not that
Mhm.
great of a bass player.
Yeah.
But it's again all the just I don't know how, but him, Pete Wentz, like just iconic bass players, even though they're both not that good.
Yeah. Yeah, everybody would always tell me that, like, back home when Fall Out Boy was rising, they would be like, "Base Pete Wentz isn't that good." And I get it, a lot of people had opinions back home of in Chicago about, like, Pete Wentz and Fall Out Boy when they were in the rise and stuff like that. But I'm like, yeah, but he's not that good. But like, look at Fall Out Boy. Like, look, it's Patrick Stump that carries that band. As much as I love Fall Out Boy, it is Patrick Stump that makes
Oh
that
yeah.
band 100%. But it's like, yeah, you know what? Pete Wentz gets by. Obviously, he's doing all right for himself, you know. And I was always a Pete Wentz lover because he was always so nice to me at shows. He was always so kind. He'd always remember my face. He was just so kind. Even if people said like he wasn't, I'm like, at least for me on my end, he was so kind to me. I'm like, I would vouch for him any day. There's no Pete Wentz hate here. Like none.
I couldn't fathom the idea of like seeing like a band like the size of Fallout Boy like that small in their career.
Oh,
Like
it yeah, wild to think. Like I literally I they helped me with parking once because I went to their CD release show and I was just starting out and I'd seen them a couple times, but we pull in and there was a parking lot and I didn't know how to pay for parking. I mean, I was young, so I was like, I don't know what to do. And I just drove to the city and I pull in and I see a white van. And of course I thought it was the city, whatever. I get out to like the pay box. You're supposed to put like money in the little slot or whatever. And I do that. And then I'm like, wait, what if we don't do it? I don't want to get towed, all those things. And literally Patrick and Andy come right up to us and are like, "Hey, do you need help?" And of course, I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Oh, here's what you do. You just put it in here. This is what you do." And then they're like, "Are you going to the show?" And of course, I mean, we're all dressed. I mean, we're going to the show. We're right there. But they were so kind about, and I think about moments like that where I'm like, wow, like they were that, humble and just kind, where they were like, walking down the street, whatever, in a white van, they pulled in and were paying to park at a venue to go play their CD release show. Wild.
you see, the only thing I really have of that is a band called Upon a Burning Body. I got to see part of like the local phase before they got signed and started doing like bigger things. But like it was like the tail end of that, so I don't count that as like I was like, oh yeah, I know that band. That's pretty cool. But that was it. Like I didn't get to like see that rise and growth that they have now.
Wow. Yeah. No, it's wild. Like that's how I feel about people here in New Jersey that like, Thursday and the people I'll talk to here, they're like, "Oh yeah, you had to see New Jersey back in the day." And I'm like, "I know. That's why I wanted to move here originally back in the day." Like, I know, I'm aware. And just hearing that, but oh my gosh, oh, could talk that like all day about those bands and just that. But obviously people that may click on this know you. I mean, that's how we connected through Unsigned Pop Punk and Where Did
Yeah.
All My Friends Go? Which again, I tell people all the time. To me, so far, that's been my highlight of the podcast and just anything to be on that show because it just aligns with everything I wanted to do in the scene and love. So again, like I want to say one, like thank you so much because that's still I still talk about that. Like I was on this show that I listen to all the time and I respect so much. But I would love to know for you, how did that come to be? How did you join and be a part of Unsigned Pop Punk?
So that's actually a really funny story. Me and Pat first met when his band was touring with one of my friends' bands, and I was just like, "Oh, cool! Like, I'm gonna go support the homies." I would try. I was like, "I'll go take some photos, try to build up my portfolio a bit more." And like, I just took all the photos, and I was just chatting with like Pat's band,
Yeah.
and it's funny because I was more closer to someone else in the band than I was with Pat. But I was just like, because I was like, I think it was their vocalist. Me and him were just like kicked it off really well, and I just like showed him the photos, like, hey, I got some sick photos of y'all at the show. I was like, yeah, I'll get them edited tonight, have them out here like in the, like in a Dropbox, Google Drive for you. And they were like, oh, that's so sick. Are you on the tour? I was like, no. They're like,
Yeah.
I was like, but I can be because I was like, I'm a Lyft driver. I literally started doing Lyft so I can take more touring opportunities.
Mhm.
Because before that, it was go to a temp agency, go get a job, go get tour dates, ask off, get told no, put in my notice, go on tour, come back, repeat the whole process. So I got tired of all that. I was like, I'm just gonna do Lyft. It's simple, easy, my own schedule. And they were like, yeah, we can. Let's see if we can fit you in the van. So they're like, they ended up couldn't be able to fit me in the van, but like I ended up just like adding them all on Facebook, and Pat randomly messaged me on Facebook like, "Hey, I don't know if you remember me, but I was in Cities Never Sleep." I was like, "Oh yeah, no, I remember you guys." He's like, I see you stream on Twitch? Could you help me set this up?" I was like, "Yeah, no problem." So I was like walking him through all this, and he was like, "This is a lot. Do you want to do this? Do you want to just be our Twitch person?" I was like, "Yeah, no, I love what y'all do."
Mhm.
So I was like, "Yeah, no problem. I like streaming on Twitch. I can add it to my schedule, no problem. It's only like 2 hours of my week."
Yeah.
And it just kind of just built up, and eventually, Matt, the guy that was doing the podcast before me, had to like kind of step down because it was just he couldn't really like give as much time to it as Pat needed. So I was like, yeah, no, like I like the podcast. Like, I always tell you if you need me for anything, just let me know. And it's kind of been full time since then. Like, and that was this year, I think, when I started doing last year.
Wow.
This year, I think. I don't remember when I started.
That's so cool. What a cool story too, like to have that of that's how it came to be because I always love cool stories. Like Justine and I, we met because we were in line at an Anthony Green solo show he had. And we always just kept in touch on like, MySpace and then Facebook and whatever. And then when I first did the podcast and then it fell apart and then I needed a co-host because I was like, I don't want to do it by myself. I don't know what I'm doing, this and that. And she jumped in. And so it's like little stories like that. Like I love to hear that like another show has a really cool story too because like that's awesome.
Yeah, and it was so funny because when I added Pat on Facebook, it was like a few days later. He had like one of the photos I took as his profile picture, and that was like the first time someone in a band did that. And it was the first time it wasn't like a homie either. That just like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, this is a cool photo. It was just like I added him, and it was like the photo I took. I was like, damn, that's so cool.
That's so cool. Yeah, when you see little things like that, especially like doing a photo because I remember back in the day like I was definitely not a photographer. I would say I'm a photographer. Here's my little Sony like cyber shot at little shows and like taking photos for bands, my friends' bands, and I had no business. But I remember even them, like if they used a photo for anything, that was so cool. But like those were my friends. Like I got it. They were gonna
Yeah,
use me anyways. They're like, they don't, but I think that would be so cool to see something like I think even me, like anytime I see like a band repost our podcast or something like that, I'm just like, that's really cool because again, they're not a friend. That means like, okay, they really liked it or like that's yeah. Oh, I love that. And again, like I was so it still is just so cool. Like I think again, I applaud you and anyone listening, like I'm gonna have all the tag, the links, all that because I do. I truly cannot say it enough. I support everything you guys do, and I think it's so important now in the era we're in when it's like all social media. And it's like cool when you get to see a show that you see that like people really care about these bands and what they do and like to push them and help the scene.
Yeah, like one thing like I love that like when it comes to like our playlists, Pat really does sit and listen to every single submission. Like he will like listen to every single band that submits something for the playlist. And that's just that's a lot of work. Like
Yeah.
it may sound like oh, he's listening to music. People don't realize like how many bands it is, and he updates it every 2 weeks.
Ooh.
Like gets a new photo for the playlist on top of doing our new Music Friday playlist on top of the podcast. Just big shout out to Pat. That man, like
Oh
he
yeah.
is like I say I'm just like the Twitch guy. Pat is like I'm like I don't mean that like seriously. Pat doesn't like when I say that, but I'm like Pat is unsigned pop punk. He doesn't like when I say that, but that he literally does almost everything. And I'm always like, whatever you need, just let me know. But
Yeah.
he does that. Like I mostly just handle like my YouTube videos for the YouTube channel and stuff like that. But he does so much work, and I can never not sing the praises of him, even though he does not like what I do.
No, he that's yeah, that's incredible because even me, I know when I'm gonna have a band on, if they reach out to me, which has been the thing lately, I'm immediately like, okay, now I got to sit down with the band and get to know them. And again, like you said, oh, just listening to music, but like that playlist and what you guys put out is so much longer. I'm dealing with a band once a week, maybe twice a week, and it's on a smaller scale where you can listen to it. Okay, here you go. But creating a playlist and doing that and really listening, I cannot imagine because even me, if I have 2 interviews in a week and I'm like, "Oh man, like I really wanna know these songs. I really wanna know what I'm talking about." That's a lot of work in itself. So I
Yeah.
cannot so yeah, I commend Pat on that because there's times even I'm like stressing like, "Oh my gosh, let me just listen to this or let me do this." And yeah, putting those playlists like, I have one playlist for our show, and it's every band that's on, but what you guys put out and what he sits and listen to, yeah, we shout out to Pat, because again, he was a big reason why I got on your show because I think I shared Halfway Down that was on your show, and he was like, "Oh, thanks for sharing that," and then he was like, "Oh, I'd like to hear about your show," and then he was just so kind and again, to sing his praises because he was so kind enough, like, my podcast was way smaller, not really doing on anything level-wise that you guys do or other shows do, and he immediately was like, "I'd love to set something up, let's collaborate," so I think he just yeah, seems like and even when I got to, like, meet him, right, meet you guys, I thought I was
Yeah.
like, "He is so cool," and yeah, so somehow I'll tag that. I'll be like, "Alright, this is what I'm gonna clip for Pat to be like, hey, look at" but I
Look
mean,
at
what
how much we love you, Pat. You
right.
better watch this because
I
we
know
love
we're
you.
and I know we're not alone too, because I know everybody that has been on the show feels that way, but I would love to know for you, what are you most proud of the work you've done with your show?
So, this actually got revealed to me recently. So we did it on Twitch. We had like a MTV style show. We like to say it was called like the Super Awesome Music Video Show, where like we just put on Pat would edit me some videos like three at a time, then two at a time, where it was kind of like Headbangers Ball or just like some like little like you would see on MTV shows where it was like block of music videos, commercial, block of music videos. That's what we just did. Just put on music videos. We were all on in chat, just chatting about the music, like all the bands there. And two of my favorite bands, like I have met outside of like from doing that. Turns out that is how they met as well. Like on it was a LOL, it's Leah and oh man, why am I going blank?
Mhm.
Oh, Smooth Brain, there we go.
Okay, yeah.
And we just had them on the podcast, and they told me because they had Leah, they were playing a show with Leah recently. Again, they told us like, oh yeah, that's how we met. Leah was on your Twitch stream, and to me, that was really cool because those are like two bands I've always just connected together already. So the fact that they met through our Twitch stuff was amazing to me. But
That's
not
so
just that,
that's so cool. That I love hearing stories like that too.
not even just that, because like some of my like closer friends, like not just like on Twitch, but I met them all through like a lot of them through like unsigned pop punk now, like LOL Tia. love her. We chat like almost every day. Is it Josh? Me and
Mhm.
him, like I literally just helped him book his like most recent tour. And like dudes, like I would call him like one of my best friends because of like just like how much we get along. Like him and Leah crashed at like we all stayed at an Airbnb together for a festival we went to. Josh just crashed here at my house like a few weeks ago. So it's just been like so cool just meeting so many different people. And even it's so funny. I was telling this Pat earlier. When we were on when I was like I helped Josh book that tour and I went to like both of the Texas dates just because I was like, hey, I helped book this. I'll be here to like keep charge so that way all Josh has to worry about is just playing and nothing else. Just play, go have fun, go do business stuff, go make friends. And at the Houston show, God, did I feel like a celebrity there? Let me tell you, they were like, "Oh my God, you're with Unsigned Pop Punk! Like,
Mhm.
we love what you do." My ego
Oh,
through the roof.
I could, yeah, that's so cool. That has to make you feel so great because it's like, of course, it's not like why you do it, but it's cool that people are excited about that and love what you do. I mean, that has to be so cool. I just think that I always say, I'm like, that would be the coolest thing if I'm out and about, like at a show, and they're like, oh, stereotherapy, like, not gonna happen, never has happened. But I think that's like, that's so cool. It's like that, like moments like that for sure.
Yeah, and like when I say my ego went up, I jokingly say I have an ego. I promise I don't actually have an ego, guys. Like you can tell me how much you like me. It'll go to my head, but it will never show. But no, it was just really cool. Just that whole experience of just like everyone like, oh, I love what you do. I've been following the podcast for like so long. I follow the playlist. And one year we did I went with Pat when we did Four Chord Music Festival as like a vendor. He had done it the year before with another person. So people were coming up to us like, "Hey, like good to see you guys back. Like I came to the tent last year. I still follow the playlist." Like and that to me is just so cool that like people still like remember us from that. Like remember Pat, I should say, because I wasn't there the year before, but people were like, "Oh, hey, you weren't the guy before," but like it was just really cool that like they all remembered. They all still like followed, like came up, like I still follow the playlist. I look forward to every update. Like it's been such a cool experience doing it.
Yeah, and that's like one of the things like I've said like a couple times for me why it was so cool to be on that because it's like you see what you guys do, what you're a part of, in just hands-on in the scene. It's just so cool to have, like, a little part of that or, like, whether someone's on your playlist or I see, like, when you guys post the playlist and, like, the picture, say someone's picture's on there, I'll see bands be like, "Oh my gosh, like, thanks for using our picture," and I see the, like, genuine excitement from those bands that either get on your show, have them on the playlist, and it's like, to them, that's a huge deal, like, back in the day, it was a huge deal, I don't know. I'm trying to remember, like, what was big in the scene if you were a band. I don't know. Maybe if you were
Like
like
I
I
can't
don't
think
know.
of like the only thing that comes to mind is like the peer noise charts.
Yeah.
Like that was like that's like, but there's really nothing like. Not saying that we're super unique and that us putting people on like the cover photo of the playlist is like that big of a deal. But like I can't really think of anything where like smaller bands in the scene could like have something like that that's really cool that wasn't like AP magazine. You still had to like unless like the people really found you, you kind of had to like pay your PR person to get you in there. Like with us, like it's literally just, oh, this band is sick. I really like this. Let's put them as the cover artist and let's put this as the first track. But
I love that. Like I'll find myself on that playlist too, and I look for honestly like for bands. Who do I want on the show? What do I want to do? Who haven't I asked yet? Who am I not sure of? I'll go on that playlist myself and be like, oh, like they're really cool. I like this. I like that. And from there, it's like things like that help me out too. Like who's up and coming in the scene and who am I not like that's why even the other day when I posted that, like who am I missing in the scene? Who do you want to see? But playlists like that help me see, oh wow, like I'm living under a rock. This person needs to be on my show. I have to reach out and like you go through all that. Sometimes they respond, sometimes, it depends. You have to go through a couple hoops, but like that's why I love stuff like that because it helps me stay in check and in the scene of like, who do I need to be paying attention to and give a platform to?
Yeah, and that's like the coolest thing about like what the day and age we live in now. Like, don't get me wrong, like I love the old days. I love the grind of like playing so many shows, passing out flyers, putting up flyers, like getting making burned CDs and just passing them out to people. But we really like as a band, as like musicians, have it good right now. We can literally just get heard all the way across the country just by like getting on the right playlists or just sharing a link in your stories now.
Yeah,
Like,
like that's wild to like think about, right? Like we're there, right? Like where maybe where some people may say it's a negative time we're in right now with social media, but it's almost like it's a positive to have that right now.
oh yeah, like don't get me wrong. I wish I didn't have to be like a full on contact, like a whole business of people just to have to like promote music. Don't get me wrong, I don't like it. I get it. I but I also understand that now we have to do all that. Like I have to put on the right filters, put on the right cuts, get the right captions on there, make it pop more. And it's annoying. And bands, I get it. It's annoying. But we got to do it. And that sucks. But we just got to do it now.
Oh, yeah, and that's what I love when I was talking with Savings because that's how I found them on TikTok, and I'm like, what they do and their content, and they were saying that, like, as much as it's not fun to post every day or multiple times a day, and you think, "Oh, great, I gotta create this content," but because of that content, like, they got to play with real friends, they got to do all this cool stuff, get noticed by podcasts or just other publications because of their social media presence. Like, again, I'm like, props to you. I'm like, everybody, because I try, and there's some days where I'm like, all right, what do I post? What do I do? I have to post something. What do I do to make it still, organic and me and not just, hey, I want to post this to get views. Like, what do I do and meet in the middle there? Because like, it's tough. So but the bands that can do it inconsistently and just keep trying, those are the bands that I'm seeing with like success out there, which is it's great to see that. And that's why I feel like it's all if you have the time, you can put it in.
Oh yeah. And like I'm very bad. I'm not one of those practice what you preach people because like I'm always telling like everyone post, 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 post. My only posts like on my Instagram are just the unsigned pop punk collaborative post. That's it. I'm just like easy done.
Oh yeah. No, that's what I've even started doing. I'm like, all right, here's my collaborative, here's this, here's that, because hopefully hit. But I mean, that's something I wanted to ask too. And being a part of the scene, what do you think? Because it was such a cool opportunity to have someone like you that's a part of it. What do you think we need to do with the scene to keep it thriving, because like back in the day, there were certain things like we were just saying, it's a different era right now. What do you think needs to be done? Like, because again, we have when we were young, we have all this nostalgia stuff, right? But at some point that's gonna go away. Like the nostalgia is gonna go away, and these younger bands, which is what I hope Warp Tour is gonna be. I would
I
love
really hope so.
to
I would
do
love to see
that.
new bands,
I
but
would love to. I don't know. I don't think
I
so. I think it's a pipe
my
dream.
doubts aren't my doubts are very high on it being a lot of new bands. I
Yeah.
think it's gonna be like how like the last one was, where it was just legacy bands, which is cool. Don't get me wrong, and like a handful of newer bands. But I would love to see more.
Oh, I for sure, and it's like that's why I was like, "All right," I'm like, "I'm gonna have Gibby here, I can ask him, what do you think needs to be happening in the industry for these younger bands, like, for them to thrive?"
Well, the real so man, that's a tough one because
Yeah.
like I have so many answers to this, but they're all like we gotta play it out and see. Like one of the biggest issues, like I saw like more recently, is that a lot of the good all ages venues shut down. A lot of shows that I see being promoted are 21 plus
Yeah.
or like 18 plus, and like I get it, venues got to keep like their stuff secured, like bar sales, liquor sales, want to keep their licenses, don't want to have underage kids in the bars. Like I get it, but we really need more all ages venues and more kids that are in high school playing more local shows with more established bands at the scene. Like
Mm,
that brings out so much because like I jokingly say all the time, like my music career peaked in high school because I had all my high school friends coming out because they were like, wow, this is so cool. You're
yeah.
playing the same stage we saw so and so at. Like, this is so sick. And I had like 20, 30 people coming out to show because we're all high school kids. Like it's the kids, the parents, they're all coming together. And I just really think we just need to make it so that the generation after us has a place to like really start like forming. Because if we're only having like 21 plus shows and we're all playing pop punk, that's like half the demographic gone.
Yeah.
And like it's cool and I get it. It's just that's like one of the big things I started noticing is like a lot of like the newer bands that I'm seeing are like just finding out about. We're all like late 20s, 30s, and like it's cool. But in like 10 years, it's gonna be almost the same thing where like those high school bands are now like in their late 20s just getting discovered because they don't really have like any places to actually like play at. That's like the main thing I've like been seeing recently that's been like bugging me for the last few years that like I like and I get it because it's more venue thing than like the scene thing.
Yeah,
But
because
with
that's
COVID shutting down all almost like every good venue, the scene kind of all the scenes started like really, I don't want to say dying. I because I don't feel like the scene is dying. I feel like a lot of the scene is still like striving today. Because we got a lot of like smaller bands, like Glimmers is on tour right now. LOL's Leah was on a tour. A lot of the like smaller bands are touring, but we also, I hate to say it, but we live in an age where you don't have to play a show, you don't have to tour. All that money you put in could just literally get put into playlisting or like ads. I just recently found out the band Catch Your Breath, like they're like on the up and up right now. Like new band in the scene, like they're opening for like a lot of the major tours. They had their song Dial Tones and they knew it was a hit. So they spent $10,000 on just for playlisting for that song. And that's what got them to they were now.
I don't know. I must be living under a rock. I'm like, I've never heard of this band. I'm like, I need to write this down and check this out and check them
Well,
out because I'm like, maybe I have heard of the name and I just never checked them out.
they're
But
more of like a like Catch Your Breath is more of like a metal band, and they're like on like the
okay,
opening spots for like Crown the Empire.
okay,
Like they're not doing like huge things, but going on tour with Crown the Empire, like that's just like their most recent one. But they've been like on like major festivals. They've been on some major tours already for the last couple years, and they've only been getting big. But that's like something I heard is that like they literally put $10,000 into like promoting that song, and that's what they got to now. And it's just we don't need to tour, which I don't want to say that because I love when bands I like come into town, especially like the smaller bands, because I get to hang out, go see them, make like hang out with the friends and stuff. But we really don't need to tour anymore. And I started noticing that even like let's see, 2014, then like 2016, 2017, like when Spotify started coming up on the rise. Because there's a band in San Antonio called Light Ghosts. I love them. I think they're great. They have they have a big like their monthly listener count on Spotify huge. They've never left the city. I think they might have played like a few like shows like in Texas, but I don't think they've ever left Texas. But they have like such a big following online,
yeah.
and they're the prime example to me of they only play their hometown like once every couple months. They literally all they mostly just like promote their stuff on spot like all their Spotify stuff. And like last time I checked, like they had like a man like almost 100,000 monthly listeners, I think.
Wow, that's yeah. I mean.
That was a while back though.
Wow.
But they
Yeah.
still like prime example of a band like you don't need to play shows to go on tour to like get your stuff out there. It's just take advantage of social media, learn how to do targeted ads on all that fun stuff. The
Yeah.
stuff that we don't like to do really does
I
come in handy.
it seems like it too. Like it was Matt of Crossing Eyes Dotting T's recently. I don't know how he got in. And I think I was asking like what's the biggest struggle or something like that. And like getting yourself out there in this social media world, like what do you do? And I'm like, it's a toss up because even if you get big views, if you're a band, does that bring people to your band? Or are they just like, oh, I like that TikTok. What do you do? And he was saying again, like it's all that social media and almost being like annoying, but not annoying too much. But in a way, he's like more so like finding your people, finding that group of people where like if you're a certain type of band and you like this band, this is your genre, you commenting, you connecting because chances are people will find you. And like you was telling me all this stuff, and I was like, wow, yeah, you've got to figure it out. And there's a reason why you guys are like there is a science to it, and there is something where, again, right, like you don't want to say like don't tour, but I do think where social media has its positives is you can create that audience, you can create all that, and again, not leave your state. And to some old heads may be like, "Oh, you gotta pave the way, you gotta tour, you gotta pay your dues." But you're doing, I think, in a different way, and you're getting your name out there because even if you toured in some of these places, some of the bands we even have on, they'll play to like a room of like 20 people. And yes, that's like 20 people, like that's still good, but the reach you can have, like, on a social media connection is
Oh
far
yeah.
better than especially how expensive gas is and touring is and all that. You can still create something and not leave your state, and I think that is really cool for me to see, like, all my friends that used to, like, play shows, it'd be again, like, nobody my friends' bands that were in high school, they used to tell me, like, when we went to college and stuff, they're like, "Yeah, no one cares about us anymore when you leave high school. No one cares about us as a band, like, nobody does care."
Literally.
So he's like, "Yeah, nobody cares that we were, like, the biggest band in our, like, Naperville, Illinois town, like, nobody cares that we were, like, a hardcore, like" they were the band Rosaline. I don't know if anyone listening, like, knew of them, but, like, they were big, but he's like, "Yeah, nobody cared." Like, nobody cared when I went to college that we were what we were doing, so, we'd, like, figure it out, and I always think, like, bands like my friend's band, like, if they had social media now, they'd probably be, like, shoot, all over TikTok, all over
Oh
this and
yeah.
that. I know it. They would eat that up. So I think like, yeah. Oh man, the scene has just changed so much. And I'm like, I think it's only going to keep changing and evolving. And I just think this social media is here to stay, whether people like it or not.
One another really good example of this. If anyone here listening wants to know how to do it, go look up the band Haunter on
Oh,
TikTok.
yes. Oh,
They
yes.
they're all great. Lucy's great.
Mm-hmm.
They've never played a show.
Yeah, that's
They're
right. Because I had a Noma on. So that's so right.
they've never played a show, and I think it was what, like 14,000 monthly listeners.
Mm-hmm.
Not played a single show ever, and they are absolutely crushing it right now.
Mm-hmm.
So like, it's just a matter of just knowing how to promote.
Yeah.
And man, this is a very loaded. Like, I could like go on this whole question forever because I have lots of thoughts, lots of different things, lots of different ideas I've always wanted to try. But it's
Oh,
just a matter of what can you bring that makes you more unique than others.
yeah. I think that is so true because that's even me, like, when some of the bands I have on, I'm like, I'll tell them, I'm like, "Yeah, it made me stop." Like, whatever you did, it made me stop. Whatever you're doing in your social media, whatever your content you're creating, as much as I don't like creating the content. And it's always funny when I talk to bands about that, and we're like, "We'll get in." I'm like, "Yeah, I hate creating the content." I'll be honest. If I could just sit there and edit everything and do that, that would be me. Um, but I know it has to get out there, but it's one of those things that, like, it's just if you can do it and be okay with the tedious part of it and maybe the annoying part. Like, yeah, Haunter is a great example because having a Noma on and everything that they do. And I even told them, like, even the lettering they use, right, in their reels, it's just their overall look, everything they do is just, again, they were a band, it made me stop. And Anoma reached out to me to be on. But then when I saw them and I was like, wow, like I've seen this band because again, it has made me stop whatever they create and just how smart they are with what they do with their content. And I think that's that's just so important right now. And again, I should be practicing when I'm preaching right now because I do not
Same.
create the content but yeah,
Same.
oh, oh man, I love yeah, I loved your episode with Lucy. Lucy, I didn't get to have Lucy on, but I love Lucy. Like she's just so amazing and awesome. And I'm like, I need that Church of Lenore. Like I need to somehow still get that because I'm like, that is so cool.
That was actually this font too that I have on my shirt right now. I was
That's
like, hey, I
so
have this
cool.
really sick metal font. And like I made it mid podcast because I was like, that's actually a good idea. And like
Mm-hmm.
so while we were filming it, I was on Photoshop like easy, real quick, boom, boom, boom.
Oh my God. Oh, yeah, no, and I'm sure like you guys hear and you probably see so many acts like Haunter, because I'm sure there's so many other examples of that too that are just they're killing it with what they're doing and you not necessarily needing to play a show and you're still getting recognized by people in the industry because of what you're doing. And I think yeah, I could talk about the scene all day. Like that's just like
Oh
wild.
yeah.
Like to think about it. I mean, obviously our podcast is music and mental health. I would love to know how has music been an aid in your own mental health? Like maybe you were going through a difficult time, whether it be an artist or just even you playing music. How has music been that aid to your mental health?
Ooh. You know, I feel like both helped, but also hurt. Cause like I love my sad music. Don't get me wrong. But I feel like at some point I was consuming so much of it where I'm like, I'm just sad. But
Mhm.
like not like and I'm not trying to like blame the bands for that, but at one point I was like, man, remember when pop punk used to be like happy and like made me like want to jump around on like I was telling like one of my best friends is like I miss that because like I love my sad songs. I would like gladly like screen them, but I feel like at so after a while, it's just like hitting me like too deep. So like I feel like music has done like good and bad, mostly good, mostly good. I want to say mostly good. I'll never forget the first time. So this was the Color Morale. They were one of those bands like No Hope. Like I literally felt like that album was written for me.
Mhm.
Like I have it tattooed right here on my arm. Like just that feeling of being heard and like be like, wow, like it literally that album felt like it was written for me.
Yeah, that oh
And
man, no one has talked
that
about the color morale. Like it, I don't think like ever on here. So that's like really cool that we finally have like a new ever since like this whole week, like the past couple weeks, people have been saying things, and I love it. I think they're just such a slept on band.
oh
And I
yeah.
think I don't think I've heard I know I can't think of the member. One of them plays with Buddy or Senses Fail.
I think it's their bassist
I,
Devin.
I think it is, yeah, which is really cool to have
Or
that.
he's a guitar player.
Maybe.
I don't
Oh,
remember what Devin plays. It's been a while. But they're like when I saw they were getting back together, I thought that was really sick. Like I love them. But
yeah.
at the same time, like I'll never forget this specifically. I played a show like no, I didn't play, I attended. It was like 2011, 2012. A random hardcore band from Chicago or from Illinois. I just assumed Chicago.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I was in tears mid set because I was like, this is beautiful. They were called Gravemind. I
No.
like never like they played that one show in Wisconsin, never saw them again. They put out like another EP and then just dropped out of the face of the earth. Then, if anyone from Gravemind's happening to listen to this,
Yeah.
please get back together. Y'all were so good.
Oh,
Y'all were too good.
I'm
Y'all
gonna
had me in tears mid
I,
set.
I'm gonna vouch for the Illinois, Chicago hardcore because there were many basements that I was in, and I will say there was something special about that Midwest hardcore music scene. Like that's what I grew up in. All my friends played that. So like for me, yeah, I'm like, I'm gonna have to look up this band. I'm like, I'm gonna have to
I
see like
I will
where
link it
were
to you.
they? Yeah,
I
where
will link
were
it to
they?
you
Where were
because
they?
I'll never forget going to Milwaukee, this show in Milwaukee, and just I literally like broke down. Like I walked into the bathroom. I was like, I need a second.
Yeah.
I
Oh,
like walked outside, took some fresh air after their set, met their vocalist, gave him a hug. I was like, my dude, I've never had a band just emotionally break me like this. Like it
mhm.
was good. I needed this.
Oh, that's like oh, and even like you talking about too, like that feelings like that, like or even like pop punk that isn't really that shouldn't be too sad or I think of like honestly real friends, like right now their latest record, The Blue Hour.
Oh, it's so
I
good.
think that for me right now, I'm like, that is my album of the year. It is so good. And I think it's some of their best work. And it's like for me, I've always loved Real Friends. I love Dan Lambden, but there was something special about this one and Cody's vocals on this where I was like, again, I lost it like the 10th floor, like things like that, where I'm like, again, if I go see them, and yes, they are pop punk, but I think about this record, I'm like, this is a sad record. This is a sad,
Yeah,
like, this is like I'm in my feels. Like I think it was like 10th floor that when I like literally like after it, I'm like, I have a tear. That's it. I'm done. This is like my record of the year right now, right here. And I think like when bands can do that, it's so special. And I'm like, that's why I'm like, that is bucket list. If they're somehow listening or someone is listening and has a connect, get me that connect. I do not have that connect. I wish I did. I
I wish I
should.
did too.
I should have that connect. But I don't. And I'm like, yeah, like you even describing that, like how you felt, like it's like that's how like listening to a Blue Hour, I punched that, I put that in, and I was like, yeah, like this. I know it's pop punk and I know it's this, but this has me in a way where I'm like, I'm even being that annoying fan, like commenting, and I'm being truthful, like that I love this record and oh my gosh, this is my album of the year. But I'm almost like, all right, just like the comment and be like, let's have a conversation. Like, let's do this. Like you would like,
I
I need to
I've gone
talk.
on a few like real friend posts to try to campaign to get them on the
Yeah.
podcast or something. Because there was at one point where they were teasing a tour. They're like, who should we bring?
Yeah.
I was literally like, yo, come team up with us on Unsigned Pop Punk. Let's blow somebody up. We work with so many different bands.
Mhm.
We could get you like I was
Yeah.
on their Instagram, their Twitter, their
That's
face. I was literally like, come chat with me, please.
yeah.
And it's I have a connection with Cody too. Like
Let's go, Cody. What's going on?
like I he like when he was in Youth Fountain, they were touring with Free Throw.
Mhm.
They went through Madison and Youth Fountain stayed at my house one night.
Wow.
And like I've been trying to build off on that. Like I don't want to be like too annoying because I'm friends with him on Facebook.
Right.
So like I've messaged him a couple times here and there, but like not trying to be like, hey, all the time. So like I'll comment on posts and hoping maybe he'll see it and be like, oh yeah, let me reach out to him.
Oh yeah, I already have some of my friends like whenever they have that little connect a little more than me, like, "Oh, I'm gonna tell him. I'm gonna tell Cody to come on." I'm like, I and like the fact that they're unsigned, I was like, "Oh, well, that's perfect in a way because listen, like I'll take anybody. I take unsigned, independent, whatever." And but you know, I'll get a like. So I'm like, I'm there. I'm not too
Yeah.
annoying. They give me a like, but it's like I am begging. I'm like, oh my gosh, come on, let's go. Like, let's get you guys on here. And I would love to see them on Onside Pop Punk. I would love to
Yeah.
see that happen and be like, look at because I feel like that's such a fitting for them. Like I feel like
Yeah.
that's so cool. And I think Real Friends is so great. Like when Savings was on my show, they were talking about how they handpicked those dates that they played with them and they picked them and they picked these bands and they could have picked took like any other band on and they chose these smaller bands and I'm like, that's amazing to see that like they're like that. They want to do that. And yeah, oh man, real friends. I could like yeah.
Cody, if you hear this right now, if you see this, come on both these shows. We love you. We want you. We want you to be with us.
Oh gosh.
Come
I
have a good chat. Let's
Yes.
talk about that Dr. Phil episode me and you watched together.
Let's I
We
should
we we have a connection with this. We watched the Bad Margera episode of Dr. Phil together in my house, in my
it's
living room.
so it's gotta happen, Cody. It's gotta like maybe that's what I'll do, the real I'll do, and then like tag. Um and then they'll be like, wait, oh yeah, no, they top tier. And like, yeah, how music can do that because there's so many, and there's some like even talking about sad songs. Like, even for me, like right now, I'm a seasonal music listener. Like, I'm like, all right, this is my Death Cab for Cutie, like weather. But sometimes I'm like, even though I love Death Cab for Cutie or music like that at times, sometimes it's like, or City in Color, I'm like, it's a little too much, like, it's a little too sad. Like, I need to
Yeah.
be brought out of it and like, where if I'm sad or going through it, like, let me put on Thursday or let me put on something that like I can still process these emotions, but I'm not just sitting there sad. And like those are great bands like Death Cab and City in Color and gosh, any of those like, I don't know, Dashboard. I don't know, just anything that's around now that's like, yeah, it's sad, it's good music, but sometimes I'm like, if I'm sad, I need like loud music. I don't need this.
Yeah.
I don't need like to be even more sad. I need something to get it out, but not in that way. If
Yeah,
that,
and then
yeah.
like back to Gravemind really quick.
Yeah.
That band, so let's gonna get a little deep here. My first girlfriend ever died in a car crash while we were dating.
Oh my
And
gosh.
ooh, emotional wreck, let me tell you. And one of their songs just I don't know how to pronounce it. It's like delicate knee or delicate nigh. I'll have to send it to you. But
Yeah.
it just that song just sent me, and this was like maybe like let me see, like 8 or 9 years after she died, and like I've thought I was like I was moved on, I was past it, I was like okay. That song came on like when they started playing that, I was like, oh, this band is sick, and then like started hearing the lyrics, so I was like, oh, oh no, oh, I like just right in the heart instantly.
Wow.
And that band has like just been like fresh on my mind lately. And that's another that ended up how I brought him up too, because like I just recently rediscovered that I had him saved on my Apple Music still. So I was like, oh, haven't heard this band in a minute, and so excited that like I found them again.
Yeah, that's like I can't imagine going through that. What I I
Yeah,
just
no, this was like
wow.
middle school. Like it was rough. Like middle
And
school me did not know how to process that.
no, and that's the thing too, is like I just I can't imagine going through that. And then like you said, you couldn't even process that and know how to process that and go through that and just like I wouldn't even know my anyone that listens to this podcast, like my fiance, he was in a really horrible accident, work related accident, and he was nearly out and died on because he was electric lineman, so all the electricity and there was a bad power
Yeah.
line, got like 36,000 volts or something like that. And he was out, and we were in Philadelphia hospital for, like, 40 days, or 37 days. I'm like, he always yells at me. He's like, "It's not 37 or 40." But it was, like, around that time we were in the hospital, and just almost having that loss. I didn't even know how to process that in my 30s, you know? So I
Yeah.
didn't even know I'm still processing that, and, like, he's still here, and, like, he made it, and he was okay, and he was saved on site, but, like, I can't imagine processing that at a young age for you because it's like again, I didn't even know how to process that in my 30s, like, I don't even know how to process it today, right? Like, in my 30s still, like, being processed that and, like, figuring out how do you deal with that, and I just think oh, that's just so awful, and it's
Yeah.
like,
And like
oh,
that took years. Like I like love my family. They didn't really think like therapy was like a helpful thing. And they were just like, yeah, you just move on, just tough through it and you'll be fine. Like they didn't, but I'm sure they also wouldn't know how to react to something like that.
yeah, that because that's the thing too. And I think about my parents too, like my mom, when I have this podcast, like mental health and music, and she's just like, to her, it's like the idea of therapy. And I love my mom. I don't know if she's listening. I don't even know if she listens, but like for me, I, it's like when I bring up to her about maybe like therapy, even for her, like these older groups of our parents that like didn't know how to process things. And it's like they just don't think about it. They think, oh, I got it. I can handle it. I got it. But it's like me even going through things in my childhood, it was like, oh, therapy wasn't a thing. It was like, "Oh, do you wanna go to therapy?" "Oh, no, I don't." "Okay, then just stop there." And it was like, "Yeah, but should I have? Yeah, I probably should have gone to
Yeah.
therapy for some of this stuff." But it's like, again, you just that whole thing, and it's I think so many people on here talk about that where, like, we wanna be that generation to change mental health conversation and, like, talk about it, or whether it's therapy or whether just talking about it versus, like, them that's like, "Alright, we'll figure it out," which it sucks for them because I'm like, "You probably need therapy too." Like, we all could use whether it's music, you use therapy, or you go to a therapist, or whatever you do for your mental health.
Yeah. And like right now, I will say I am so thankful and grateful to have like my partner right now. Like I never felt like so comfortable being so vulnerable with somebody like this. Like if I had like a really bad day where I'm like, I just want to cry, like I know like I could wake her up and be like, hey, can you come sit on the couch and just let me talk or anything? And so thankful that I have someone like that here. Cause ooh, it like love my family, but they be the stress of my life sometimes. And
Likewise for me. That's why I me too. I'm so thankful for my fiancé because he's that same way too, of like, I was really stressed out about a couple things the other day, and I just needed to sit on the couch and have ice cream. Like, I needed to sit and just deal with what I was going through at that moment, or he's always there, and it's like, even him, I feel like the mental health conversation, because like, before me, he didn't really talk about his feelings, he didn't really do that, and then now, it's like, we'll always talk about it and things like that, and it's like a good partner. Like, I just had a episode with someone that, like, had a bad partner and how that can affect you, but, like, having a good partner is, like, so good for your mental health, and again, it makes you be more vulnerable and be able to, because like if I couldn't talk about things with my fiance, I don't know what I would do. Like if I couldn't like openly discuss some of the things I have been able to unpack, like even when we started dating, it was like, oh, I have anxiety, I have this, I like, but real anxiety, because everyone will say, oh yeah, I have anxiety. Like even tonight, right on election night, they're just I have anxiety, but like
oh
not
yeah,
know what anxiety is, and
it's
it's
been
like
so hard to not want to be like, oh, what's
I
going on
know.
right now?
I know, right? Like, oh gosh. And I know Justine's probably like sitting there right now, like, oh, but it's one of those things that like I think he didn't really know what it was. And I mean, there's times even in our relationship where I'm like, oh, I don't know the parking situation. Oh man, I gotta parallel park. I don't know if I can do this. I need you to drive because I'm scared. Like I'm scared, going through it and like having that reassurance of like, hey, like I've got you. I've got your back in this. It's so important in mental health because if I didn't have that, I don't know. Like, I really don't know where I would be in my mental health or even just as a person because it's so important. So I can understand that, and it's like, cannot stress that enough, like, or even if it's not a romantic partner, like a friend, like somebody in your life, it is so because like, I love my family too, but it is the sometimes the most stressful part of, some conversations and things like that, where it's like, "Thank God I have this podcast," where I could, like, hop on and be like, "Okay, alright, I feel normal, I feel seen and, like, good," and, you know, I can do that.
Yeah, I feel like I've been very lucky in my life to have friends that, like I know I could talk to about almost anything, but I never really had that in a partner until recently, and it feels like a more healthy, more stable relationship. Because like before, like if something would bother me, I would just be afraid to speak up. Because and even now, like I still have like very bad habits of like keeping to myself because like I've had really bad relationships in the past where
Oh,
I'm just
same.
like if I like speak up about something, it just boom, my fault, blah blah blah. So
Yeah.
like I'm still like working on that part still. Like being able to fully communicate like, hey, I really didn't like or like didn't really appreciate this like, and like that's just something that's still just been hard for me to do still, like even now, because like just in the past it's had a lot of like me expressing myself or expressing concerns just turn into like a negative interaction.
Oh gosh, yeah, I can relate to that. Like I I've had some really bad relationships before, finally this one, and it was the same thing too. If you spoke up about anything and things you were supposed to speak up on, right? Like things anyone would speak up on, like, hey, that's not right. That's not okay. It would be, you're arguing, you're being negative, you're this, all these things. So I was afraid. And I think people don't understand, like, even in your mental health, like getting into a good relationship after a bad one, it's hard. And it's hard on both parties, like your partner, and then it's hard on you because, like, my fiancé didn't understand some of the things, like, that I would do, like, even the something so silly, like, when I would go out to dinner, I was with someone that was always just awful, and, like, when we would go out to dinner, if I ordered something, say it was a little higher, not that I was, like, uppity, like, we're talking Chili's, we're talking cheap
Right, right, right,
restaurants
right,
here,
right,
but,
right.
like, if I ordered something a certain way, there would always be, like, a comment or something, so now, it's even to this day, there's some times where I'm like, "Oh, I gotta bring myself out of that," where it's like, no, I can order what I want. I can do what I want. It's okay, even if it's a little more than the other person's, and, like, learning things like that, and then having to talk to my partner of like, "Hey, this is why I do it. This is why." Like, I know you're not that person, but it is just it's hard to unlearn some of those things from those past relationships. Like, I've had to do even, like, stuff like that, like, unlearn, like, "Hey, it's okay, like, don't freak out if, like, your meal is, like, $4 more than theirs, like, it's okay. It's
Yeah,
alright, you don't have to freak out," and, like and my fiancé never cared, he's always like, "Why didn't you? Like, why did you" and we have to have these conversations, but it's, like, being open, and it's yeah, relationships are so much to our mental health, and I think people don't get that sometimes. And then I
yeah,
know it's easier said than done, like, "Oh, leave them," but it took me a long time to leave my situation, so it's like it's when you're out of it, it's like, "Wow, if I could hug my younger, like, 20-year-old self, like, hey, you're gonna be okay, you're gonna get out of this, you don't need to be with this person, you're gonna be so much better off." Ooh, yeah, relationship stuff, wow.
yeah. No, no. I like I said, I get it. I've had my fair share of bad relationships over the last like 10, 15 years. So
Yeah, it's oh my gosh, yeah, that could be a whole nother podcast, like relationships and your mental health. But like before I kind of let you go, I want to know about your any mental health advocates that you think are in the scene, whether it's pop punk, hardcore, anything music. Who do you see really making waves as far as promoting mental health or talking about mental health in their music?
oh, ooh, that's a good one. Cause like instinctively, my first thought is the color morale.
Mhm.
That's like the first thought that comes to mind. That it's so hard to like. I'm trying to think of something just like more recent and relevant. Man, it's so hard because like, man, that's a good one. Cause like I'm thinking more of like just the different organizations. Like one of my favorite charities is Hope for the Day.
Mhm.
And first when I was like, that's gonna be my answer. Then you said band. I was like, oh, the
Yeah.
color morale. Oh no, they're not really going right now. Man, that's a good one. I'd have to like sit here and actually think about that. Cause hold on, let me see.
Yeah.
Gotta actually look at what bands I have.
Oh, yeah, that's even tough for me sometimes when I think about it too, I'm like, "Who?" Because there's even bands, like, for me, I think too, like, even not necessarily would I consider them a huge advocate, but members like Fall Out Boy, like Joe Troman and
Oh
talking about in
yeah,
his
yeah.
book, right? Or even Pete Wentz back in the day, like, too, obviously talking are they this big mental health advocate that is out there all the time promoting it? No, but they have in their own ways. So it's like for me, every time I bring them up, people are like, "Really, Fall Out Boy?" I'm like, you gotta pay attention. Yeah, like, they're definitely as far as member-wise, like, Joe for sure, like, his book.
Oh yeah, unlike like the Jake from August Burns Red, he
Mhm.
has a heart support.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, like to me that's like a big one right there.
Oh.
Like heart, like just that. Man, this one's a tough one because like I'm trying to think more band like lyrics wise than like actual like just people because I, as much as I'm involved in the scene, I'm very bad at like keeping up with band members and like who does what.
Oh, I mean, that's me too, like heart support. Like for me, that was the biggest thing when they followed us once. I was like, "Oh my gosh, heart support follow." Like that's like what they do for the scene and specifically that metal scene that I think it's so such a like stigma for mental health and male dominating like music industry genre. And it's like I love what heart support does. I think
Oh
they're
yeah,
just I actually when we had TJ on from our space, he brought that up and I was like, why did I not think of that? Like, duh, like I've known of heart support. I've known of Jake from
oh yeah,
August
like
Burns Red, like doing this stuff. How did I not know? And I felt like, oh, I felt so stupid. I'm like, how do I not know that? And we have like a music and mental health podcast. Like, it's huge.
yeah. I used to like run like every like I've taken a break from Twitch recently, like this year, just because me and my partner moved in together. We share an office. Clearly, you see her setup behind me,
Yeah.
and like trying to like stream while she streams, or like trying to fit in a stream with her calendar, my new work schedule. It's just been a little tougher because like again, bad relationships. I'm like, I don't want to stream while she streams because I feel like I'm being a bother or a nuisance.
Mm-hmm.
And she does not make me feel that way. But
Right.
it's just like a thing where I'm like, well, I work at 4 a.m. every day almost. And I'm like a night person. So like I don't like to stream super early in the day. I'm more of like, all right, let's start at like 8 or 9. So and then on top of that, I have the podcast, unsigned pop punk stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, well, the stream could cut back for a little bit, and maybe like because we're in December, we're moving. It's wherever she because she my partner just got her PhD,
Oh wow,
so
that's
she graduates
amazing.
in December, and we're gonna go to wherever she gets a job.
Right.
So fingers crossed, we get like a 3 bedroom, so
Mm-hmm.
we can both have our own office. That way, I can kind of pick that back up and not worry about being right here. So like her mic can like you know.
Yeah. Oh, I get that. Like, we can't wait too. Like, either I'm downstairs or like I'm upstairs. And it's always like, well, what do you want to do? Okay, well, you want to go do your like video games and go do that. Okay, well, I'm gonna be down here. That like just having that own space too. And like I'm the same way where it's like, yeah, I have this podcast, but it's like I don't want to invade you and your time and your stuff, even though like he doesn't care. He's my biggest supporter where he's like, do it. You
Oh
should do
yeah,
the podcast. Do it. Do it. Like that's so great. Or if he hears a question, he's like, oh, that's a good question. That's a good thing. So it's like, yeah, unlearning that stuff too, and, like, being okay with that and, like, saying, like, maybe, like, what you're telling yourself, like, maybe if you're being a nuisance, you're really not. But it's so hard to get out of your head with that
yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
but
No, and like she always tells me, she's like, you can stream when I stream. I don't
yeah.
care. It's just, I mean, at like one point when I first moved in, our desks were literally right next to each other, and it was almost impossible
Yeah.
because like she'd be like arms length away, and like we both like would just be talking, and it was just so hard to do. And I was like, can we try to move the office around a little? And this is better, but we both get loud when we play. We both, it's just one of those
Mhm.
things where it's just
Yeah.
hard to do in the same room.
Yeah, oh, no, I get it, like, that's the number one thing when I'm recording, I'm like, "Hey, just don't be so loud, like, what are you playing?" Or is if it's Overwatch or if it's something like that, you need to keep it down, you're not allowed to play
Oh,
Overwatch when I'm
oh,
recording, and, he's one of those, and it's like he's always like, "Alright, well, how long do you think?" I'm like, usually hour, hour and a half, depending, this, that." Like, "Okay." But, yeah, no, if he is playing, I'm like he's directed no Overwatch in those games when I'm trying to record because I'm like, no. You're gonna hear your yelling and whatever. And even though he's upstairs, like right above there, I'm like, no, no Overwatch tonight. Like you could just, or like when I go to bed, you could do that. But yeah, so relatable to that and like having your own space. But
We
I
want
know.
to talk about how poor my mental health is. I play Overwatch all the time.
There you go. Then we
Oh
could
my
tell.
god, that
Then that,
game.
yeah, oh, that's the one where with him, I'm like, do you even enjoy this and like your friends or like what's going on? Because you're always angry and like mad playing these. And like for him, when he got hurt, because with his injury, he lost two fingers on his left, nerve damage on his right. And his scariest
Ooh.
part for him was, will I ever play video games again? Will I ever be able to do that? To him, it was huge. So his brother, and I give him credit, got him this device. It's called an orb weaver. And it's a thing, it's like a mouse, but it has buttons on it. It's almost like a,
Oh, it's like one of those hand mouses, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
And he had it. And because of that, that saved him in the beginning to where he had to relearn so much with his hands and do that. And he would get frustrated because he loved the device, but he was like, I can't play games like Overwatch. I can't do it with this. So he took it upon himself to almost learn a way to hold his controller, play with two less fingers, and do this and that. And he's still so good at this game. He still gets so angry at his teammates and his friends. And he's like, I do this with two less fingers. He gets so mad like at them. And I'm like, again, like, yeah, there was a little bit of peace with no Overwatch for a while, but now it's back. Now that he's like, but I'm proud of him and I'm so happy for him that like he can do that again because that was a biggest fear for me too. Is like, can he ever play video games? Like that's huge to him. That's like everything to him. And it's like whenever I hear him now, like it's like I'm on that verge of like, all right, be quiet. I'm recording. But also like, that's so awesome. Look at how far you've come. Like that's so amazing. I
Yeah.
love to hear the yelling. If I didn't hear the yelling, like that would really suck. Like I'm really happy, but like no, those games, any of those games, it's yeah, they'll
See,
get off, they'll be mad, and then they'll be all right.
with me in Overwatch, I'm good at not yelling at my friends
Yeah,
unless I do it accidentally because I don't know who they're playing. Because I'll be like, I don't know what the hell our support's doing, and they'd be like, "Sorry." I'm like, "Oh, that's oh, you guys are good. You guys are good. Don't worry, it's
yeah.
not you guys. I didn't know that was y'all. I'm sorry."
Oh no.
But like random people that can't hear me because I'll just be like, it's usually like me and two friends playing, and then
Yeah.
this we'll just stay in a chat. We won't join like the actual like in-game chat, but I'll be like complaining nonstop about our like our randoms that join us, and then I'll accidentally say something about one of my friends because I don't know it's them, and I'll be like, wait, no, I didn't mean that. No, that wasn't you guys.
No.
I didn't know it was y'all. I take that back.
Uh no.
So
Oh,
I'm pretty good at some most of the time at not yelling at my friends.
yeah. So you're a step ahead. I gotta tell him. See, like Gibby and other people are good at that. Like you gotta like, but they do it to each other. I'm like, what are you
Yeah,
guys
that
doing? But
me and my friends like to like me and my friends like to yell at each other, but it's more in fun.
right. Oh yeah.
It's not like personal. Like, why are you doing uninstall? It's like, why are you
Yeah.
doing this? You need to stop.
Right.
You're goofing. Let's go. Come on, come on.
No. Oh. Oh my gosh. Yeah, no. So, ah, man, this has just been so great. Like talking about all this stuff. And I'm just like, this episode, I'm like, is going to be so good. I can't wait to like put it out. I'm already like, all right, but how, and not being, rude to anybody. I'm like, how can I bump this one up a little bit into the rotation of it? Because it was so good. Like we talked about all this cool stuff that I feel like I'm able to with someone like you and have that. And again, like everything you're a part of is just so wonderful. And I think, again, I'll push people your way, but I'm pretty sure anyone on my page is already like on there. But if somebody wants to find where do all my friends go, Unsigned Pop Punk, I know on your website,
Dot
www.unsignedpoppunk.com,
com. Yep, that has
that
everything you need
everything,
to
right?
like. Literally, if you need, if there's a band listening, you want to submit to the playlist, unsignedpoppunk.com. Just follow all those links. You'll get like our links to like the podcast, the Twitch stuff when it comes back. Literally anything you guys need. It's all right there. Yeah, no, that's the easiest part about it. If you ever just want to get a hold of us at Unsigned Pop Punk on literally everything.
And all right, guys, that was my conversation with Gibby. Again, I cannot thank Gibby enough because it was election night. I was sick. There was so much stuff going on, but it was just so amazing to hop in with someone and again, just have such a wonderful, real conversation. We have them all the time on this podcast. And I just love that this was on that night when I was feeling like junk and I almost thought about canceling, but I was like, I cannot cancel on Gibby because I know it's going to be such a good conversation and maybe I need this. So, again, all links below. Go follow Unsigned Pop Punk and bands. I hope you heard. If you want to shoot your shot, do it. You know, you never know what can happen. They do a lot of great work. And I'm really excited to see what's next for them. And every time I see a new podcast episode, I'm so excited for Gibby and company over there. And yes, as for our show, if you are liking this thing even just a little bit, be sure to follow the show, subscribe to it. It truly would mean a lot, and a positive rating and review if you really, really love this thing. So many of you have already done that. We cannot thank you enough. I appreciate you so much. You have no idea how much we appreciate you. That is how we have gotten to 95 episodes, because of the support. We'll have another conversation on Tuesday before Thanksgiving, and then we will see what after Thanksgiving. But we have a wonderful conversation on the way, and I can't wait to have that one out there as well. And yeah, I will see you guys next time. All right. Bye, guys.